We have Jen Hart here with us tonight. I send out the love. Yeah, you might want to close the door. They're a little obnoxiously loud tonight. On your Google Doc, if you scroll down to Finding Community, it's chapter 5 through 7. She's going to be covering that. And I know it sounds like a lot, but you don't have any homework this week, and so that's your homework to read. And remember that your senior year syllabus is supposed to be done by the 29th, so that you have your whole year kind of planned out and some key things that you're supposed to do. And so let's just take some time to introduce yourself to Jen so she knows who she's talking to. So we'll start over here with Jenna. Just introduce yourself, tell her when you think you're graduating and what you're studying.
Alright, I'm Jenna Hembry. I am only a fifth year. I'm going to be graduating in the spring, and I'm a wildlife major.
I'm Zach. I'm in construction engineering, and I'm also graduating this spring.
I'm Brandon, aeronautical and astronautical engineering, and then I graduate in December.
I'm Harrison. I'm in robotics, and I'm graduating next summer. Yeah.
I'm Shayna. I'm in finance, and I should be graduating in the spring.
I'm Hank, drones and aeronautical engineering technology. Hopefully this spring, maybe fall.
I'm Ben. I'm studying aviation. I'll be graduating this spring.
I'm Charles. I'm a junior in computer science. I might be graduating next spring or next winter.
I'm Hallie, studying industrial engineering and graduating in the spring.
I'm Casey. I'm in biomedical engineering and linguistics, and I'll graduate in May.
I'm Eli. I'm in construction management, and I'll be probably graduating in spring or something.
Besides you, does anybody else have job outlooks or anything like that that's excited?
There's like nothing yet, but I did email one of my previous employers. Like, it's kind of like this recurring thing. So I'm asking him like, hey, like I'm going to be out of college. I just wanted to get ahead of the law, and it's like, would I be a possibility or work with?
I know it's pretty early, but.
Had a couple ladies walk in late. If you just introduce yourself to Jen and tell her when you're graduating and what you're studying.
My name's Anna. I'm a senior studying civil engineering, and I'll graduate this spring.
Okay. My name's Emma. I'm studying environmental engineering, and I'll also be graduating in May.
And on your Google Doc, it's Finding Community, chapter 5.
Thank you.
Well, all ears for your wisdom.
So I am Jen. I graduated in 2014, so almost 10 years, which is ridiculous. I interned here and at Calgary for a year after graduation, before we moved to Louisville. I got married in there, and then we moved down, came back, super glad to be back. Loved the Louisville area, but it's nice being in Lafayette again. So, anywho, why do you guys think it's important to have a community that you're a part of?
I think it's build accountability, have people around you in a support group, keeping each other accountable towards the Lord, and ultimately building one another up.
Anybody else have anything to add?
I for one can get pretty lonely if I'm like holed up either in a dorm or an apartment now. So it's like, having that community, or like making yourself go to that community and like being with people that can really help.
Yeah. 2 summers ago now, my parents moved from here to like Alabama, so they had been here my whole life, and so it was like but I realized when that happened that I had a really good community here, and so it was like those people that I still depend on in some ways, but it wasn't like my whole life was upended because I was far from my family. And so I think that component of community, if you can be far from people that supported you your whole life and still have the support around you.
I'm really glad you didn't have a community because that would be really hard.
And God created us to have that community and to lean into it.
What are some struggles that you guys have come across in like finding community?
especially like coming off and trying to like go to college. Not really like, I don't know, the Army's a different environment than college, especially when you're in like most of the country. So it's kind of like, it's all like super aggressive, and then now you're like back around a bunch of college schools and you're just like back in high school. So yeah, it was kind of interesting rolling in on the first day of class and like, oh, so this is what it's like, yeah.
So did you do any of college before you came?
No.
Through the Army? Okay.
My grades were too bad. I had to.
I wasn't sure if you took classes or something. That's cool. Good for you for going back.
It can be challenging to feel like you're kind of starting over, because like I went to high school in Wisconsin, so coming here I didn't really know anyone. So it was challenging going from like the people you grew up with and knew super well to like essentially strangers. Like I know that will be like a similar challenge we all face when we graduate, we go somewhere new, we don't really know anyone, so it kind of feels like you're starting over.
I think it's hard to, I tend to like compare new relationships to like ones that I have already. So like I have expectations that I should be like really great friends with people that I just met, and when it doesn't happen because it's not supposed to happen, I get like, I would start back with the people that I know already. More comfortable.
Anyone else? I don't want to cut anybody off. Yeah, I definitely think like a lot of what you guys have said really does make it a struggle, and I actually moved around a lot growing up, and so to me it was kind of like normal, which is weird. Like I remember in 5th grade, I like told everybody I wasn't, or no, it was 4th grade, I told everybody I wasn't coming back because like we move every year or two, and I was like, yeah, we're not coming back, like I'm sure we're gonna be moving, and then like in 5th grade I went back and I was like, just kidding, I'm not going anywhere this time. So it was just really interesting like growing up and moving, and it does always feel like a fresh start, or it's really hard not to like compare friendships. And I mean like even now, my husband will joke with me, I have a like high school best friend, her husband is almost in the Air Force for 20 years, I think he's on his 18th, I don't know. But I mean, they've been gone for a long time. Anytime we get together, it's like always like we hadn't missed a beat or anything. But he'll constantly be like, oh, well, is so-and-so like a closer friend than Kimberly? And I'm like, you can't really like gauge that sort of thing. Because she's always going to have a special part in my life, but like realistically, the friends that I have here are people that I'm going to be leaning on more so than like old friends. So it's really good to have friends all over, just to be able to like connect and things like that, and like obviously keep up with people that you've met in your past. But I've also experienced it's really good to like have strong foundations where you're at now. I would say when I came to college, I really kind of struggled. I kind of had like a rough past, and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I went to church with my grandmother, and when I came to Purdue, I was like, I really want to get involved in a Christian group, because knowing me, if I didn't get involved in a Christian group, I would go the rest of the way Purdue goes, which I did not want to do. So I went to the activities fair. Do you guys still do those? Where you like go and there's like 100 booths and you like sign up for everything? Okay, cool. I wasn't sure because, you know, all this technology, I didn't know if you just like check a box, don't talk to anybody. But I went to one of those, and I was like literally at every booth that was like religious based, and I was like signing up, you know. And then I lived in a dorm on campus, and my roommate was a partier, and like every friend I've came across was like a partier. They were rushing for sororities, and I'm just like, I don't want any part of this. So I started going, like I went home quite a bit. It was like 2 hours away. I had a car on campus, which was super clutch, but I would just kind of go home, and I would say that that like held on to like that past versus like letting go and like fully submersing myself in this sort of situation. But I just kind of didn't know what to do without friends that were doing things that I would want to do. Like I didn't want to go parties with them and stuff, so I kind of went back quite a bit. And then I want to say it was either September or October, I finally got a call from the BCM/PCM/lunch and, you know, all that. Somebody had called me and they were like, hey, like we got your information and we heard that you were looking for a group to be a part of and we'd really like for you to be a part of us. And I'm like, my gosh, finally. But this girl had like called 500 people before, like they had like an outrageous amount of numbers to like reach out to and stuff, and a lot of people like blew her off. And so she was also really excited. I was excited to talk to her. And she and her sister became really good friends of mine. But I would say that I really struggled and felt like kind of lost on campus before coming to launch, and this ministry has been a really big blessing to my life, which I'm sure most of you guys have experienced. How many of you guys found launch like as a freshman or early on? A lot of you guys. When did you guys start coming? People that didn't come freshmen.
We were part of Campus Outreach in Ann Arbor,
Okay.
but they aren't around anymore, so really
Okay.
we just started coming this year.
Okay, cool. How did everybody else find out about launch?
It was my sophomore year through Casey.
Okay.
My buddy lives here, so yeah, it's something to
Did it take a lot of convincing?
Well, I didn't really like grow up in a Christian household,
Okay.
so I didn't start going to church till like a couple years ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
Obviously you like it, because you're here. I mean, ish. I mean, you don't have to say you don't right now.
I mean, I'm so coming back.
There's something. Some of you guys didn't come freshman year? Where did you
I came freshman year. So I got cut from the band my freshman year, and so did a few of my friends. I was like, well, I'll just stay at the dorm and play piano. And they were like, well, we were gonna get dinner over at Wiley's. And I was like, okay. So like all of us down in the dumps, we were like on the 3rd Street near the co-rec, and then Launch was handing out the Death by Chocolate cards. That was
Oh, yeah.
a long time ago. And I was like, well, maybe we could go to this. I mean, like it looks pretty nice. So we found Launch, and then they went home. But then I found Carolyn. She's graduated now, and then like a few others, and it was just, yeah, I kept coming back from that.
I know, it's so sad when people like graduate, because when, I think the twins were only here for 2 years when I was here, and it was really sad. And I found out one of them just moved back, so I'm really excited. Did you hear that? Amanda moved back
Oh, Amanda did too?
to Yorktown.
Oh, really?
So not like super close, but close enough. So I was really excited. She was like one of my really good friends, and so it's another thing. It's really cool when your friends like move back to the area you're in and you can see them more. So the first community, and like, because God kind of created us obviously to like be in community, and like the first community was like God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And when He refers to us in the Bible, like that is the community He is talking about. Can anybody read Matthew 28:19 for me?
Go therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Can someone do 2:18? Genesis 2:18. That's the important part. Pick any book you want and read 2:18.
Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper corresponding to him."
So God desires community, and He created us in His own image, so we need community. This always has to be a priority in our lives to find a healthy community. Paul and other writers in the Bible talk about the importance of meeting each other, loving each other, and carrying others' burdens. Can somebody read Galatians 6:2 for me?
It says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ.
So I think it was, I forget your name, but you said something about accountability with community. Was it you that said that? This verse just really like reminds me of that, and just like how if you don't have a community, like whose burdens are you going to carry and who's going to carry yours when you're in a time of need. I had a friend who had to have like back surgery within the last year. I'm just going to have it again because it didn't work, but there were like 6 weeks that she couldn't lift her own kids, and she has 3 kids the same ages of mine, so they're really little. But it's just really cool to be able to come along like your brothers and sisters in Christ and just really help them through different times. I think it really strengthens you to have a community where you can't rely on each other in that kind of way. So there's 7 important aspects to finding community. The first one is that the world's a stage. There's always going to be like different things you're doing, changes, moves, new jobs, new people. God will move people in and out of your life. Some will come for short times, some will be for long times, and some of them will be forever friends. There are specific purposes for those people being in your life, so embrace them during their time in your life and let them go when it's time for them to exit or it's time for you to exit. The amazing thing in social media is that it allows you to always be connected with them in some way. So one of my best friends that I have today, I met her at one of our launch events. I think it was Snowdowns. She was lost. It was during BGR, and she couldn't figure out how to get to her dorm. So I was trying to explain to her, like, hey, you go down here, you turn here, whatever. You know, I didn't do the Lewis and Clark, like, north and south, but she still looked like a deer in headlights. And I was like, okay, I will just walk you back to your dorm. She lived in Owen, and we were at, I don't even know what, is it Elliott Hall of Music? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I don't even remember. But we were there, and I was like, I really don't want to walk there, but whatever. This chick, she's going to get lost. She needs to go back to her dorm. So I walked her back. We're still best friends today. I was cracking up because she came over the other day, and I was like, I'm in a bad mood, so like, sorry, don't judge me, but like, we can hang out, whatever. And then we started cracking up because she was like, I don't care. But when I first met her, she was having a bad day, like forgot something back in her dorm, and she was like real frustrated about it. And she was like, all these people probably think like I'm some crazy person and I'm not nice because I'm in a bad mood. And so like that was just kind of how our relationship started. And so it was just funny to like be able to have a friend to come over and like realize you're in the place you are and that they just accept you. But I never once thought that like walking this girl back to her dorm would create one of those forever friendships. So you just really never know how you're going to meet the friends that you come across. The next aspect is choosing to transition. Yeah, so just being like transparent with one another, and I would say like how my friend and I just were recently is like a really good example of that. Like you have to be comfortable with those that you're finding community in, because I think like having somebody that you can be vulnerable with is going to be able to hold you accountable way more than somebody that you're afraid to admit things to, because you can't really have accountability if you're not being your full self with somebody. So just make sure that when you do find friends that you can be transparent with one another. And then the next part is beyond happy hour. So you can like go out with friends from work and things like that, which is where you guys might find some of your friends and things, but you also need to find different things that you can do to spend more time together to get into a deeper relationship. So if you like playing pickleball or something, like you guys can go do that, or disc golf or other things. But you're going to have to really try hard to form relationships outside of college, because here you guys had your campus ministries or things like that, or like the launch house to kind of go back to find that relationship. But when you go to work and things, like there's only so much relationship that can be formed at work or work events and things. So you still have to be really intentional about making those friendships. But what kind of experience have you guys had of meeting friends, whether they're non-Christian or Christian friends, so far? Nobody has any friends? I'm sorry.
I can go first. So like my freshman year was the COVID year, which I'm sure most of us also experienced.
Kind of forgot
And
about
so,
all that.
It was tricky because I didn't really have any classes in person. So sophomore year, I was so excited. So like my very first class, I just sat down next to a random girl and started talking to her, and she ended up being like one of my best friends, and we're still really good friends to this day. So it was kind of just like going out of your comfort zone and talking to someone new. Just happened to become a friendship.
That's really cool. I do feel like it's hard to like initiate the conversation, and then I mean you never know like if they're gonna like you or if you're gonna be a good fit or not. But it's really cool when that does happen.
I feel like I just stumble into situations and then some extrovert comes like, you know what, you're gonna be my friend now. And I'm just like, alright. But I mean, outside of college, like after I graduate, like that's not gonna be, like I have to go and like actually talk to people, and that's, I'm more like with talking to people, but it is nerve-wracking for me, so it'll be a learning curve.
Yeah. Yes.
I think I met most of my friends at work, either Chick-fil-A where I'm working, but also in my program at the airport working there. I met a lot of people. I don't know, it just seems to come, not necessarily like naturally to me, but just when you're put in these certain situations where you're like in close proximity to people for many hours at a time, it's either, you know, you end up being friends or it's just really awkward for a long time. So you kind of like are almost forced to be friends in a way. And a lot of that obviously comes outside of work too, like you mentioned, like fostering those relationships. Like I try to do that quite a bit with the friends that I met in work, try to expand on that and try to meet them outside of work and actually do things like that as well. But that just seems to be my experience. And then here, of course, but yeah, mostly work.
Anyone else?
I'll share.
Okay.
So it kind of took until second semester, junior year for me to find like a group, like a consistent group of friends. Because everything before that kind of ended up just like acquaintances, or like I wasn't able to get close to anyone because I think it comes with like trust issues, or I don't know. I was very like nervous to get too close to anyone. But last year I met my friends, and it's because we joined a dance together for a cultural performance. So during like tech week and practices, we got really close together. So it's still going on now, and I'm happy. It just took all the way until junior year, second semester, which is kind of a long time.
Anybody else before I share? Okay. So I feel like it's pretty hard to like find, especially like non-Christian friends now, because most of my friends have come from like church, or I used to be a part of a group called MOPS, which is like Mothers of Preschoolers. So usually, I mean, there's some people that come that don't have a relationship with Jesus to MOPS and things like that. But I feel like it's pretty hard to find like non-Christian friends, but I do feel like it's really important to find those friends. But a way that I've found recently that has been really cool to meet some more non-Christian people is through foster care. We are fostering our little son Dion right now, and I have decided to like make it a point to get to know his mom and like take her out to coffee and things like that. We've never really had like spiritual conversations or anything, just because I don't want to like push that on her, but just letting her know she doesn't have anybody like in town to like rely on. And I mean, I feel like being a person, it's hard not to have a community, but like also being a mom with like 2 little kids is hard. So I think just like it's been really cool to let her know that like when she does get her son back, like we'll always be there for her. And so it's just really cool and unique, the way that God can give you different relationships, and you never really know where they're going to come from. Do you want to share that?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to share a little bit. Most of Ben and I's Christian friends came from our small group at church, but we did make a few Christian friends at work. But for us, we both had full-time careers, and then Ben went to seminary part-time, and we did ministry just like at night. And so most of the non-Christian friends did come from work, because that's where we spent most of our time. And so we tried to like bring those 2 worlds together by having like parties and stuff at our house and dinners. And so it wasn't just like us trying to share with our coworkers, but it was kind of like a team. And then a lot of my prayer partners about the people that I was sharing with were actually people from college that didn't even live in the same place that we were. And one thing I learned really quickly is when you're in a work scenario and there's another Christian there with you, and you're trying to like share with the other people that don't know the Lord that you work with, it's really important to be on the same page. If you come from different denominations, really focus on the gospel and not how many times you take communion or when you get baptized and all that kind of stuff. And so we learned real quick to be on the same page with that, and it was really a cool experience to, you know, share with our coworkers and be praying for them, and it was a really cool experience. The other thing we did is our apartment complex would have parties pretty often, and so Ben and I made it a priority to make sure we were at all those parties to be able to meet people that lived in our apartment complex and be friends and share with them. This girl that she's sharing about, Ashley, one favorite thing she told me is when she sees her neighbor go out to check her mail, then she will go out to get her mail too, just so she can talk with her. And she makes her husband go to like all of the yard sales when they have a yard sale in their subdivision, so she can talk to people. Ben served on our homeowners association in our subdivision. We got to know a ton of people that way. We played on sports leagues. Once our kids got old enough to play sports, that's where we met a ton of people. And so like even some of the people that are in our ministry right now, like they are the student that like my kids played sports with their whole life. And so you never know what those relationships are going to be. Another thing I learned from an alumni is you don't actually have to have a kid playing a sport to be a coach. And so he would go and coach these kids and have a great time and get to know the parents because they were his age, and just got to share the gospel a lot in that way. We did field trips with our kids at school. I had another friend that she was on a praise band, and she had a friend that played an instrument, and so she invited her to play in their church orchestra, and like they used it as a ministry to speak into her. One of the most time-consuming things I did, but totally worth it, was I started a kids club for my daughters and their friends that they wouldn't get to go to church. Like their parents would let them come to this activity to learn about the Bible and to play games, but they wouldn't let them go to church. And through that, we got to see like 20 girls accept Jesus, and all these moms start going to church. And so be creative, you know, and the different seasons of your life. VBS, we always loaded up all of our kids in the neighborhood, like whoever would let their kids go, and we'd drive like every single vehicle we had to Calvary with all the kids going to VBS. And a lot of parents actually started going to Calvary because of that too. But I think just like throughout the different seasons of your life, you just have to be creative and ask God what you want, what He wants for you to do. I know I was also a part of a mom's club, but before I joined one, I really prayed about God to show me which one I was supposed to be in with my little girls. And we went to this lady's house, and we were playing this game, and the question was, what came down out of the sky when John baptized Jesus, and I was the only one in the room that knew the answer, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's where I met my best friend Claire from Britain, and she was not saved, and I got to share Jesus with her and watch her come to know the Lord. And so just be open to whatever God calls you to do, because you never know what little avenue he's going to take you down, so just be open to whatever he calls you to do.
The next point was take risks for real communion. So kind of like what you were saying, if you don't have something, then it's really easy to just be like at home or not involved in anything. So like you can have work and you can be at home when you need to be, because rest is also important. But after college, make sure you have some sort of group or activity that you're a part of to get to know other people. It's a way to make Christian friends, non-Christian friends, and just be able to stay together with friends. And social media is not going to get your friendship bucket full. I mean, it can do some, but it can't do all of it. God designed us diversely, from the Tower of Babel in Genesis to Revelation, where every tongue will worship God together. Would somebody read Genesis 11:6-9 for me, please? 6 through 9.
But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth.
Humans were trying to be their own God, so God confused their communication, which is why we have different languages. Would someone read Revelation 7:9 for me, please?
After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands.
The great thing about being here at launch is that you're exposed to people from all over the world, and most of you attend churches that are made up of all ages, so you get to have an advantage over other graduates that have not had the same experience. The mere fact that you guys know how to have a relationship with all kinds of people can give you the edge on getting a promotion over someone else, because companies say that the average college student spend most of their college experience with people just like them. So they struggle to transition to the workplace where there's going to be people of all different ages. The next point is to practice hospitality. Has anybody ever practiced hospitality that they know of, like while here at college?
Wait, like have we practiced it or did we just? Okay. I had a couple girls that I was mentoring last year that I started just like inviting them over for dinner. Like one of them pretty much every week, and I would try to have like both of them at one point. And that was so much fun. Like I didn't expect to love that so much, or just like getting lunch with someone and be like, oh, we can go eat it at my apartment. And that was really nice, because I ended up in a much bigger and nicer apartment than I expected, and I was like not paying rent, and so it was a huge blessing. So to be able to like use that space was really cool. Yeah.
Anyone else? I know it's hard in college to be able to do that.
I live with my friend Daniel, who is a grad student, used to come here, and we remodeled our basement, so it like doubled the size of our house pretty much. So we're doing able to have family stuff and use it.
That's awesome. Was it completely unfinished before?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, it looked pretty much like this, actually.
Yeah.
And we actually it's pretty similar. I didn't think about that, but we put like walls and then drywalled it and painted and stuff. So.
It's amazing, like what you can do to make a space seem more like home than not. Like we have a basement and it's like finished, but we lived there for 2 years and we just decided to like put carpet down there, and it's like we actually like hang out down there a lot more. I don't just send my kids down there and tell them to be quiet. But it's been really nice. it makes it nice to have more space to host.
So I have, what class is that? I don't know what class it is. But we're like in a group of 4. I think it's my FNR 331 class, but I'm in an apartment now, and we all needed a place to like make a presentation and like put it together, and I was like, you know what, instead of going to like walk, like I've got an apartment, let's just have like a dinner host and you know, that kind of stuff. So we ate dinner there, we played some music, and we got the presentation done. So it's like, that was kind of like my first taste of like inviting people into my space. Yeah.
It's nice to have space to do that too. Sure, it was more fun. Has anyone had an experience where they've been like blessed by somebody's hospitality that they noticed was like different than?
I have this friend who, she's like a few years older than me, but she like just gives me the garage door to her house and lets me go over there whenever I want. Like even if she's not home, it's just like hang out in a new space. And she has a dog too, but I don't really get to see dogs that often. So I don't know. It's really sweet to have like a quiet space that's like not necessarily my home, but like someone else's home. So it's really cool.
My high school best friend's parents, we're still really close, but her parents in high school let me stay for like a week while my parents were out of town. But also her house was always like, they always had Oreos stocked, which I was stoked about because my mom would not. And so it was like, they had the really good pantry, but it was always just really welcoming. And I really felt at home there. And so it eventually became a friendship where it was like, I could just walk in sort of thing. And now Swan, who's here, her house is one where it's like, just walk in. And I texted her like,
they have Oreos?
Sometimes. She has a ton of popcorn though, and she had a lot of fun there for a while, so it was like, and Coke, oh yeah, she keeps, okay, this is important. She keeps, she like stocked Coke for me, and like vanilla Cokes occasionally, but mainly Coke. She was like, there's Coke at my house, like, just for you. And so a couple weeks ago, I was driving by, I was like, I should just go, and I texted her, I was like, are you home? And I was outside the front door, so she said yes, and I just walked in. And it was great, so that's been really, really sweet and special.
Anybody else? I've noticed with like hospitality, it can really help you make better friendships and deeper friendships. We are leaders of a small group at Calvary, and so like we've tried making it a point to get together with like the different couples, because like we all get together and things, but just being like one-on-one and inviting them to your home, it makes them feel more comfortable. You can talk more and really get to know each other better. And then an experience I had in college with hospitality was the twins had an apartment together, and we did like a girls' night there, and we did like fondue and stuff like that. But I feel like it was just like a really memorable moment because we all felt like more at home, and like we could hang out and just chill with each other. So hospitality has like a really big part in relationships, and being able to open up your home, or even just have friends that you feel comfortable going to their house and things like that. From my experience, I feel like there's always been perks with hospitality, and it really helps your closeness to happen. The next point is surrendering our picture. I don't know, like, was this, yeah, you already talked about Claire though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can share it. Sometimes you expect your best friends after college to be the same age as you, and a lot of times they're not. We've had so many alumni that have befriended way older people, you know, at work or church. And I know for me personally, my closest friend right out of college was 20 years older than me. She was actually my campus minister's younger sister, but she was going to seminary where Ben was, and she lived in the same apartment complex, and she was a nurse, and I worked retail, so like our schedules lined up. We were like free during the day where other people were not, and so we just like became best friends. And so sometimes it's just convenience of who's around you, and so just keep an open mind. I think it was, Nicole, one of our alumni, the lady that she was best friends with was almost retired. Like she was at her work and they always hung out and they were the best of friends and they like learned from each other, you know, so you never know who God's gonna send as your best friend.
I had like a different, I don't know, like, it's gonna sound weird and lazy probably, but I've never had like an actual job after college. I always joke with my husband that like I'm already retired. But when we got married, I was going to seminary and doing like online classes, so like I nannied, and so it's like you can't really find friends there. I mean, it'd be quite the age difference. So I like did that, and then I did work at David's Bridal for a little while, but it was while I was pregnant with my son, so like that was just kind of hard. So I feel like I haven't really made friends of like astronomical age differences or anything. Everybody's pretty much close. Or I guess I had a friend that is like 12 years older than me, but her kids are the same age. So to me, she's my age because I feel like age doesn't necessarily matter after college. It's just more like how you get along with somebody and if you guys click together. And then the next thing that is really important is like mentors and discipleship. Is everybody like familiar with like Barnabas, Paul, and Timothy, or like mentoring and discipleship? Mostly. Yes, no. Maybe so. Yeah, no. Okay. So I really like mentoring and discipling. And then, so there was Barnabas and Paul who were friends, and they were peers who pushed each other closer to God. And then Paul was Timothy's mentor to look for someone older to invest in. And then I'm missing one of them. I guess that one there's not a discipleship one, but so I actually, like with Nettie and then Julie Runner, both of them have mentored me through life, and then I am also homeschooling, and so having Julie to be able to talk to about that is really cool. But just knowing someone that is older than you can really give you wisdom through just different things. But I'm like getting lost in my thoughts, sorry guys. But with like Julie Runner and homeschooling, it's just been really good to like get a sense of like how to do that through Christianity and like really touch into that. And so it's been really cool like walking alongside her. And then I would say like my peer mentorship would be Ashley, the friend that I made in college. It really started out as like me mentoring her, and then as we got older, it really turned into like us pushing each other towards God. And recently we've started reading the Bible together, which has been really cool to have that and like have somebody that's on the same level as you to kind of ask questions and talk through things. And then I also find a lot of value in discipling someone else. So once you guys are like out of college, you get situated in things, finding somebody that is younger than you, or even just somebody that isn't as spiritually, I don't know what the word is, like I guess as spiritual as you or whatever. It's really good because the people that you disciple can also teach you things that you might not realize, and so it's a lot of benefit in that. Would somebody read 1 Peter 5:5-7 for me, please?
Casting all your cares on him because he cares about you. Be sober-minded, be alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for anyone he can devour.
Thank you. I don't know. Is that the right word?
Was that first?
Peter 5.
Was it
5
5
through
or
7?
something?
That's not what I have.
Wait, what chapter did you
I think
say?
you just read 7.
Wait, 1 Peter
Yeah,
chapter
1 Peter
5?
1 Peter 5.
Start in
5
verse
through
5 and then
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
7.
that's
You got it.
In the same way, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that He may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your cares on Him, because He cares about you.
Thank you. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was like,
When I turned back to the page to like go off of that, I was like, wait a minute. Can somebody read Titus 2, 1-7? Sorry, it's a bigger one.
You, however, must teach what is appropriate to sound doctrine. Teach the older men to be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. Likewise, teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to too much wine, but to teach what is good. Then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. Similarly, encourage the young men to be self-controlled. In everything, set them an example by doing what is good. Is this the next one?
It's just
like split in the middle. Okay, your teaching shows integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech. They cannot be condemned. I have it like cut in between serious and soundness of speech.
Okay, I guess the thing says 1-7, but it goes through 8. So it says, in your teaching show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed, because they have nothing bad to say about us. So after graduation, you have to be more intentional about getting a mentor or mentoring someone than you experienced here. This community is set up to foster this type of relationship, and not all churches are set up that way, so you'll have to pray and seek that out. Has anybody, so the next part is going to be like finding a church and like figuring that out. Has anybody had experience with like church shopping that they want to share about?
Like I said, I didn't really go to church. It wasn't until I had a pretty like eye-opening experience where it was like, yeah, it's time to start going to church. But then it was kind of like trying to find a church that wasn't like I don't want to say like a Planet Fitness, but like, you know, Planet Fitness is like judgment-free zone. But then you walk into church and then you don't do something, and everybody's like looking at you, and it felt like the most judgment in the whole world.
Yeah.
So it's like, alright, this one ain't for me. So then it was just trying to like, sometimes the people, it probably took me like 4 churches before I found like Clear River, where I was like, hey, everything's so bad here. Where it was like, it was cool with the like people that were gone, and then like the pastor as well. And then like the message you have to agree with also, and, like your beliefs. So it's just like, I mean, there's a little bit of a challenge, but it was just kind of like interesting. Just bounce down like, hey, where are we going this week?
Does anyone else have experience of like trying out churches or anything like that? I feel like it's hard, especially if you come here and people are already going to a church and you're like, yeah, I'll go. But when I was growing up, my grandma kind of gave me some experience of like trying different churches, because my brother was kind of going away from the church, and so she was trying to find like one that he would be involved in or like, and it was just really interesting, like trying all of these different churches. I feel like there's so many different things out there. There was like a youth group in town, which this is the one we landed, but it didn't keep them coming there. But they had like a youth group thing where it was a huge space, but it was like basically an arcade where all the arcades were like 100% free. Like you just go in, you play all these arcade games. There's like a cafe, and I think like you had to pay for that, but it was like really cheap. And so it was like everybody would kind of come, play games, hang out, and then they would go for like a sermon or a lesson over at the church and everything. But it's just kind of funny, like, how you can see everything, like, there's, like, different churches, everything is so different, and so there's definitely something out there that you guys will be able to find. I would just say, like, kind of have a list in mind of, like, what you're looking for, and then kind of go by that, but my husband and I have really liked finding churches with small groups. There's just some, like, I'm amazed at how, like, some churches that just don't really do them. And so I feel like a lot of our community has come from the small group, because when you just go to church on Sunday, or even like a midweek service or something like that, like you're coming and going, you may not be really connecting with anyone. But I've noticed like with our small groups, that has been really good. And then another thing is most churches have like a discovery class of like what their core beliefs are and things like that. And so we would typically like go to a church. Some churches were like, nope, not going back there. And then others we would go a couple of times and then maybe like go to their class to kind of see like what they're about, and then kind of decide yay or nay on like if we liked that or not. Especially because like we were wanting to be leaders of a small group at whatever church we went to, and you usually have to like go through the membership process. But when we lived here, my husband went to a different church and I went to Calvary. And then when we got engaged and married, he ended up coming to Calvary with me because I was working there. And then when we moved away, we had to go through the whole church shopping process, which that is like my least favorite part of moving away. I am just not a fan. Like I just want to find a good church and like get involved and plugged in, because I know the community in that is so great and very beneficial to be a part of. So I am not a fan. So when we were moving back, I was like, hey, Calvary, and then he was like, hey, Elston, and so we couldn't really agree on which church we would go to, and I couldn't like lay down the hammer and be like, well, I work at this one this time. So we came back and we church shopped again, which was really frustrating, and we took off like the churches we went to. So we searched and searched, and then I don't know, nothing was like really clicking. And for some reason, my husband was like, let's try Calvary again. And I was like, okay, like really excited, but trying not to get my hopes up type deal, you know? And then when we left, he was like, that just really felt like home. I don't think there's a time that I wanted to like knock him out, but like that was pretty close, because we had wasted 8 months of being back, completely avoiding Calvary, but he liked it when we went here. Like he enjoyed it and everything. So it's just really interesting. Like you don't really know where you're going to end up, and it's not always guaranteed to be the place that you want it to be. And ideas and thoughts can change. And then we also went to Calvary before. How many of you guys have been or go to Calvary, I guess? A few of you. Okay. So now it's like really big, but I was there back when like it was tiny. And Daniel wasn't the pastor there, and Erica Carlson was the college ministry person. And Kyle also went there during that time. But it kind of, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, I mean, you know more about this than I do, but like I feel like a lot of people kind of left during that time.
Yeah, it was a really terrible place to be.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into one of my other points, is like God will call you to a church and he will call you away from the church. So like when things are hard, you don't just leave. Like you really need to seek God in that. And for me, things were just really bad, and I literally begged God every single week to let me leave that church. And I'm so grateful that he didn't, because he actually, part of his plan was like putting me, or allowing me to be on the pastor search committee, and Pastor Daniel was a friend of Ben's, and that's how Daniel found out about the job, because he lived super far away. And so there was this whole plan that God had for us to be in that transition that I was trying to just run away from. And so stick through the hard times, because I'm so grateful that I'm there now, because I love my church so much, and it's huge, and it's totally impacting the community. And so be very cautious in leaving a church. And even if God does call you away from a church, sit down with the pastor or the leaders and let them know why you're leaving. Don't just disappear. Like that's hurtful on both sides. And so leave on good terms.
Like they don't,
yeah.
Like if it's like something specific, it might be something that they needed to work on, or
yeah, you guys can
something
work
too,
through.
versus them not ever finding out what was happening.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talked a lot and time's up. So, does anyone have any questions?
On that last point, like, how do you know when God's calling you away from a church or when He's calling you to stay? Like, what were for
Yeah,
in your
for me it
experience,
was
what
just,
like?
I just had an unsettled feeling that I was not supposed to leave, that my time there was not finished, and there was a purpose for me staying. And so I stayed even though it was miserable. And then as far as being called to a church, every church that God's called us to, it's just kind of like what your husband Kyle explained, just like, oh, I feel like I'm at home, like I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
I feel like you just get like a good feeling,
Yeah.
or like there were other times where like we went to the class and we were just like we just don't really agree with that, and so it was just kind of clear to not.
I think one of the hard lessons I learned from that is, and it sounds weird, because now if I was to go to a new church, I would ask to see their finances. And it's public knowledge, like legally you have to be, because if I would have looked at their finances, I probably would have never joined that church, because there was just a lot of stuff going on that was not okay. And so the whole statement of you put your money where your heart is, that goes for church too. And if the church is not healthy and they're not giving to missions and they're not doing what they say they're doing, and there's shady stuff going on, it's probably not a place that you're supposed to be. I love that that's all going to be on YouTube now, but that's okay.
Probably just shady.
It's being real.
So just out of after college, I plan on, and I've talked to my parents about this, like I'm gonna get a job, that's what I'm trying to set up now, and then I'm gonna be back in the house just for a little bit, and then like save up enough to move into an apartment in Fort Wayne. But like when I was in high school before, we had a church, it's Methodist, and it's gone United Methodist, and really, really bad. But, like, how do I find, like, a good either Baptist or, like, how do I find a good church like that? Like Calvary, because I go to Calvary, and it's, like, the best thing I've ever found.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard. Before I moved somewhere, I just, like, Googled, like, lots of different churches and like got on like Google Maps or something, and you can type in church and kind of see like where they are, and then I would kind of narrow it down by like the website, like what they offered, what they said they believed, and then kind of like make a list and then just kind of go and try them out and see how it goes. But if you like kind of look them up and go through like their website and stuff, I feel like you can learn quite a bit of like what's going on there.
Yeah,
to kind of get an idea
before you actually like trip
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Well, in most places, people move, one of the staff or one of the alumni knows somebody that lives
Mhm.
there, and
That
so
too.
they can invite you to a church.
That's how I found out about like
Yeah.
Sojourn in Southern Indiana. Was I think Daniel Berry actually told me about that. So
So yeah, just ask us, we'll connect. Last semester we had one guy like, oh, finally we have a place where nobody knows a connection, and Rick's like, oh, wait a minute, my brother has a connection here. Like, okay, never mind, just kidding.
he was right there. Nobody forgot.
Yeah, Soma City is like nicknamed the city of churches. Like, I have 7 different churches, maybe 5 miles from my house, like just everywhere.
So when you say Fort Wayne, is that
Yeah,
what you said?
Fort Wayne.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like you'll have lots of options there.
Practice.
Yeah, one of our freshmen dad's church there, so I'll hook you up.
Oh.
That's good.
Also, there's a, since Calvary's part of like Southern Baptist Conventions, there's like a directory that you can look up. So that there'll be a lot of churches that like identify kind of close with Calvary, but you still want to check their website.
Yeah, definitely check that. Yeah. SB.
But they're
It's been a
What is
minute
it,
since I had to
SBC?
look at that.
Oh yeah, it's sbc.net.
Yeah.
You can look at it.
Not all SBC is created equal.
There, exactly. Any other questions before we do prayer requests? Okay. What can we pray for this week? I'll put them on the group piece so you can pray.
My boyfriend's family, the Millers, they had 2 dogs and they just had to put one down on Tuesday.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause she got diagnosed with cancer. And his mom and his sisters are taking it really and the other dog's really confused, so I just prayers for comfort as I get used to them.
Anybody else?
School is definitely revving up. I think we can all feel it. So just pray for exams. I've got one coming up. Just pray for like ease or steadiness of mind. That can definitely be challenged, especially during fall. So.
I've been putting a lot of my attention into finding a full-time job or just an internship for next summer. That's starting to take over the time I have for normal school activities like homework and pay attention to class.
Remind me, Ben has a contact for you that I had lunch with the other day for a job.
Great answer right there.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I'll close this in prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for Jen and just for coming to share her wisdom and experiences of church and community and friends. And I just pray that each and every person in this room, when they, after they graduate, I just pray that you would help them to find a really healthy church and community to plug into, and that you would just surround them with amazing friends, and also friends that don't know you, Lord, so that they can share your love with them. I just pray that everyone would have a great week. I pray for the Millers as they are struggling with just the sadness of missing their dog and just that whole thing. It's just so hard when we lose a family member that's a pet, and just bring them comfort. And I pray for Jenna as school is ramping up, and for everyone else's classes as well. And I pray for Charles to find the right job. And we praise you for Hallie finding an amazing job, and I pray that you just go throughout our week and use us to glorify your name. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you, Jen, for joining us.